over at Amerika, a site that I linked to, and I'll have that link in the description box below, I found this, and I quote, "I began to look into the occult a few years ago, staring into that abyss until it revealed itself to me. I found Solomon's old adage to be truer than it had ever been. There is nothing new under the sun. Like most people living in Amerika, I used to be lost as to the tactics of the enemy. I wondered in the same manner as most, asking questions like, how can people not see where we're headed? How can they not see what's going on? These questions are easily answered by looking into the tactics of the enemies our ancestors faced, which are the same enemies we face today. Human history is like a circular cycle moving across a linear timeline. Those who would have us prisoners within our own minds use the same tactics every time, and because of our nature as humans, we fall for the tactics over and again. Leftism is, in my view, a cult. It seeks to keep truth hidden. It is unlike God, who desires that we know the truth. Leftism is much akin to the original Mosaic law in the sense that it creates systems that no human being can possibly live up to, as the original law was intended to demonstrate. And rather than grant people the freedom of any grace at all, leftism, under the guise of pseudo-humanitarianism, lies and virtue signalling, hides and denies grace and forgiveness for human nature, instead demanding lockstep adherence to ideologies that reality cannot sustain. It's the damned serpent personified politically." Unquote. What a great insight. What is clear is that all of the ideologies, whether it be liberalism, fascism, communism, have more than a touch of the occult. The occult is concerned with hidden knowledge, particularly of a magical or supernatural nature, which leaves an interesting question, as all of the ideologies are materialistic. In other words, they believe that magic and the supernatural doesn't exist, and that only the material world, the world you can see and touch, is real, which seems like the case is closed. However, I think of the French poet Charles Baudelaire's quote, "The devil's finest trick is to persuade you that he does not exist." Whether the devil does or does not exist is not the point. The point is that the ideologies did not spring from nowhere. They have both histories and prehistories, and in both the occult influence is there. The search for hidden knowledge, knowledge that only they can see and understand. My first thought was that the unintelligent writings from academics, I'd always thought that they were written so badly because they wanted to appear more intelligent than their ideas warranted. Many people bizarrely believe that if they cannot understand something, then it must be profound. But in the occult, unintelligent writing exists not to impart knowledge, but to hide it in plain sight. Does that explain why so many people don't understand what's happening? I'm not sure. But it does help explain how the ideologies believe in the idea of perfection. Christianity rejects perfection. Instead, it says that the world and the people who have been made in God's image are fallen, which means that we are imperfect and that our real struggle in life is to strive towards being a better person, even though we can never be perfect. In other words, it's possible to be a better man, but it's not possible to be a perfect man. And that on the day of judgment we will be judged not only for our sins, but for our efforts to be better than our fallen nature. However, the ideologies reject all of those things. They all began as Christian ideas and then became heresies. They all decided that it was possible to make perfect people who live in a perfect world, and all without God. But they also believe that they have secret knowledge that no one else knows about or understands. In that, they may be right. After all, how did these disreputable philosophies ever gain power? And here is another paradox. Liberalism and the left have set such high standards that no one can possibly live by them. You cannot be racist, but how is that possible when noticing that race exists or being white makes you racist? you cannot be sexist. But how is that possible when noticing that different sexes exist, or being a man, makes you sexist? In their world, you can only exist by understanding that you are not one of the occult masters, but that they are. Only they understand the secret knowledge. However, in the past, under the Nazis, and even more so the communists, that wasn't enough. Under liberalism, the same is coming to pass. Submission is everything, and that is still not enough. How will anyone be able to survive? Well, to quote from the article, with no room for grace, forgiveness, human nature, or reality, unquote. The occult is very unforgiving.